Hi, it's Meagan. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be working on some freezer meals. So I'm going to be sharing with you 3 of my family's favorite freezer meals. These are great meals to make, one for now and one for later. Two of them are crock pot based, where you just throw everything into the crock pot, cook it all day, eat what you want to for dinner for a couple nights, and then just toss the rest in the freezer for meals another time. And then one is for a super easy chicken pot pie meal that my family always makes enough filling to make for chicken pot pies for one meal, and then it's super easy just to store the filling for another night when you want to use it. So let's turn the camera around and I will get started showing you some of my family's favorite freezer meal dinner recipes. So for the chicken pot pie, I'm going to add my chopped up veggies. I have about half a pound of carrots, which ended up being like a cup or a cup and a half, about a cup of chopped celery, and then half of a chopped onion. And I'm just gonna stick these in here. I'm gonna add a little bit of water, and I'm gonna cook them for about 5 to 10 minutes, along with some potatoes, until they get tender and soft. And then for my potatoes, it ended up being about 2 cups or so of potatoes. Ended up being like two potatoes-ish. So I had a little bit of water left over in that container, but I'm just gonna add a little bit more. And then I'm gonna cover those and just kind of let them steam and cook for a little bit. I'll go back and stir them every so often. And while those are cooking, I'm going to work over here on my sauce. So let's move you over here so we can see a little bit better. In this pot, I'm going to add and melt 5 tablespoons of butter and whisk in half a cup of flour to make a roux. And then I'm going to add in 3 cups of chicken stock and 2 cups of milk, alternating until it makes a nice, like, thick sauce. I found that it helps if you heat up your chicken broth and your milk so that they're warmer. It doesn't quite shock the roux quite as much. And I found that that helps kind of thicken it up a little bit easier. Okay, so in here, just heating and mixing this butter and flour mixture until it kind of makes a thicker paste. And the flour is cooked out. And then I will start adding my chicken broth and milk and whisking it until it gets thick. So for this, I am using homemade chicken broth. If you want to see how to do that, I can link a video in the description box about how I make it. I just make it in the crock pot, and it's super easy, really hands-off, but it tastes really, really good and definitely adds a different depth of flavor than your boxed or your powdered chicken broth. If you can hear some background noise, sorry, they're still working on our yard and our neighbors' yards, so you might hear some construction sounds. Okay, while the sauce is thickening and I'm heating up my milk, let's check back here on our veggies. I would suggest using a bigger pot, but mine is currently dirty, so this is all I have right now. So they are getting steamed a little bit, they're getting bright in color. I am going to add some salt and some pepper. Because this is a lot of potatoes and plain veggies, it can take a lot of salt. And I found that as I am adding the salt, I always think it's too much, and then when we go to eat it, I still always add more. So I'm going to mix that up and put the lid back on and let those keep steaming for a few more minutes. And then back over here to our sauce, we're getting bubbly and it's getting thicker, which is good. Our milk is done heating, so we're going to slowly add that. I like to add my liquids about 1 cup at a time, and then kind of let them whisk them in to incorporate it, and then let it kind of start to get bubbly and thicken before I add my next cup. And this process will definitely go a whole lot faster if you add it slower and if you make sure that your liquids are heated. They don't have to be like boiling, but if they're not straight from the fridge cold, then it will work a lot better. So I'm going to add my last cup of milk, and then I'm just going to keep whisking this until it gets all thick to the consistency that I like. Know that as it sits, it will thicken up too. So start it a little bit thinner, like pull it off the stove a little bit thinner than you actually will want it to be. Okay, this is getting, I'll show you over here. This is getting to be close to the consistency that I want. It's definitely getting thicker. And as it sits and cools, it will continue to thicken. Something I like about this recipe is that you can kind of make it earlier in the day and then assemble it when it's close to dinner time, because it works best if your filling is cool. If you put your filling into your pie crusts like right when it's really hot like this, it can start to cook and mush up and soak into your crust before your crust has a time to cook, and it will make your crust soggy on the bottom. So this looks pretty good. So I'm going to turn this off, and then I'll take it over to my counter and show you what we're going to do next. Okay, I pulled my sauce off. So I'm going to put this just right here, and let me go grab my veggies and we'll mix those together. Okay, so I have my veggies here. I'm just going to pour those into my sauce. Okay, and I'm just going to incorporate those, mix those all together. And then I'm going to add 2 to 3 cups of chicken. This is just chicken that of cooked chicken, sorry. This is just chicken that I pulled from a rotisserie chicken. And that's one of my favorite things to do. It's definitely one of the cheapest ways to get pre-cooked chicken, is to just get it from buy a rotisserie chicken, pull it off yourself, and then I usually keep it in 2-cup freezer bags in my freezer, since most of my recipes that call for cooked chicken call for about 2 cups. And then I just have that in my freezer, and I can just pull it out whenever I need to make something. So I'm just going to let this sit here and start to cool off. As it cools, it will start to thicken. And if I'm not going to use it right away after it's cooled down a little bit, I will put it in the fridge, and again, it will continue to thicken in there. And then once it's all cooled and thickened up, I will bring you back and show you how to assemble your chicken pot pie and how to prepare it for the freezer as well. So here you can see my filling has cooled off and has gotten quite a bit thicker. So I pulled out my deep dish pie dish, and I'm rolling out just a pre-made pie crust inside and pressing it in to the bottom and the sides. I don't need to grease it or anything because there's enough fat in the pie crust that it won't stick. And then I'm pouring out some of my filling. The recipe that I gave you is enough to make 2 pies. So I am making 1 for tonight, and then I'm going to freeze the other half of the filling to make for another night for my family. My family can eat 1 pie for a dinner with a little bit of leftovers. If you need more of this, you can easily double or triple the recipe and you can just freeze the filling as you need to. I found the best place to get pre-made pie crusts is Winco, or my Kroger store have the best prices on them. So I'll put that in the oven at 350 for about 30 to 40 minutes. You can do an egg wash to help get a golden brown color. I just didn't have any eggs this day. So this is kind of what it looks like coming out of the oven. And then with the rest of the filling, I'm just going to label a gallon-sized freezer bag. And I'm just going to put it in this bag holder that I have. It makes it really nice to hold bags open when you're doing freezer meals. And I just put the rest of the filling in there, and then that's what I'm going to freeze. You can also freeze your pre-bought or homemade pie crusts as well. So I'm just going to get all the air out of that, lay it flat, and I'm going to freeze it on a cookie sheet so that it freezes flat, and then I'll just put it in the fridge to thaw and assemble my chicken pot pie like I normally would. So here we're making a sweet pork recipe. I've made this on my channel before, but you take about a 4-pound pork shoulder or pork butt and put it in your crock pot, add a can of Dr. Pepper, and cook that on low for about 6 to 8 hours until it's nice and tender. And then you'll take it out and you'll shred it, put it back in with the juices, And then you're going to add a few other things to this part of your recipe, and you'll cook it on low for another hour or 2 or 3 until it gets all combined. So you're going to add about a half cup of sugar, about 3/4 cup of brown sugar, as well as some other spices. You're going to add some ground mustard, some cumin, some salt, some garlic powder, and some oregano, about a teaspoon of each, as well as a can of green enchilada sauce. And the original recipe calls for a can of red enchilada sauce as well, the small cans. I just didn't have any this day, so I didn't put it on. And then you can use this to make whatever you want. Tacos, burritos, quesadillas. My girls like quesadillas. My husband likes burritos. I sometimes do it on a salad or in lots of different things. So you can eat what you want to for dinner that night. And then whatever you don't eat, you can just put in a freezer bag and freeze it for later. And then you have some pre-cooked meat all ready for you when you need another meal. Now, my last meal, I lost a bunch of my footage for, but it's just pulled pork. So you're just going to put, again, about a 4-pound pork shoulder in your crock pot, add some salt and pepper, 1 or 2 tablespoons of liquid smoke, as well as about a cup of, half cup to a cup of apple juice and a half cup to a cup of chicken broth. And you're just going to let that cook low and slow all day for about 10 hours. Shred it, add some barbecue sauce, let it heat through. And then again, you can eat what you want. If you don't want to eat, you can just freeze in freezer bags. Those are 3 of my family's favorite dinner freezer meals. If you have your own family's favorite freezer meals for dinners, make sure you drop down some comments down below so that I can get more ideas. I'm always looking for super easy freezer meals to keep in my freezer for those nights where things are just super busy or weeks when life is crazy.